Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Valley of the Heroic podcast. Today is a treat for me, maybe a treat for you, because I am here with none other than my twin brother. Dang, it would have been so much better if I didn't mess up 10, because it would have been none other than my twin brother. This man, listen, all right? He's the poet of ages, okay? He ventures into the desert wastelands looking for souls to preach to. It's not about being famous with this man. He deserves the fame, but he's out here like he's in Dune, you know, he's in the deserts just looking for souls and just...
Dune is a dope movie.
Did you see part 2?
Nah.
I heard part 2 is amazing. I didn't see it though. But listen, I'm here with a great friend of mine, Jawanza. And as per usual, we're gonna talk about his story because we believe that God's story shines through our story in the way that we experience him, even in the midst of painful situations. And I hope that this is a conversation that you are blessed by. I believe you will be. And yeah, Jay, you wanna introduce yourself to the audience a little bit about you and what you do, what you're about, what you care about, what you're passionate about, what you like doing, who you love.
So my name is jawanzafenelus. I am a Jesus lover, a husband to the amazing Sandy Fenelus, father to the sweet and precious Ashe Fenelus. Those are my 3 main modes that I live in. I also a youth pastor at Chestnut Street Community Church, and a youth director at in Elizabeth in a program over here that we're local for. I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about seeing people in a healthy place. I went to school for social work and Bible based off of that passion, just trying to help people and learn more about what are some ways that we as people can use methods of sociology, psychology, and practical just compassion to help each other. So for me, I am a kind of person that if there is someone to be helped and I can help, I'm just that kind of person to jump in and help. I just want to see people win, man. I want to see people better and not broken and suffering and functioning in a level of dysfunction. So I don't remember any of your other questions, but that's generally who I am and what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Thank you for sharing that. One of the main things that comes up for me is we've talked before about what life would have been like if we weren't saved.
Mm.
You mentioned how you love helping people and you love serving people, helping people get to a better place, be healthy. Do you think you would have ended up that way without Jesus?
No, without Jesus, I'd either be dead in jail, and by dead, I probably would have committed suicide. I wasn't really gangbanging.
I imagined gangbanging. I was like, dang, gangbanging? Because I know you used to. I know you used to have some hands back in the day.
I used to fight a lot, and maybe you never know nowadays, especially cats don't fight just one-on-one anymore, and things get real violent. But it was more because I had a moment in college where I hit a very big wall, and it was because of a lot of stuff that I had gone through as a child. And that was, without Jesus, I wouldn't have made it out on the other end of that. It was therapy, walking through that season with friends, Jesus, and processing well as trying to be a holistic person. So
right.
I would not be where I am without Jesus. Easily, I can't even imagine my life. I could imagine my life a lot more ways in jail or dead. Because in jail, because of my anger and outbursts and just how easily I was just a slave to my emotions, or in dead because a lot of the things that I was going through mentally and just things that I jumped into, I probably would have just been so dissatisfied with life and not finding any answers to the hole in my heart would have just led me to commit suicide, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it sounds like you were carrying like a sense of brokenness with you into your adulthood.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was something
For
that
sure.
Jesus was able to take and give context to. But without that, things could have been like really disastrous for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. One of those like you don't realize all the things that were planted in you when you were a kid. And when you get older and I just had all these questions and all these unanswered pockets in my heart, even with Jesus, that I never looked at and processed, like my relationship with my mother. And that is not great to this day. And all the things that happened when we were kids and some of the just emotional lapses and parents getting divorced and a lot of questions. My parents were like very much so like, we're just not going to talk about stuff. So
Yeah.
if stuff happens, it happened, then we just move on.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of communication, the lack of like emotional, being met emotionally in that moment and being able to articulate stuff really did something to me. And I picked up all these like pieces of brokenness and had all this shrapnel in my spirit that I didn't process until I got to college, and just seeing all these other people who just felt like I could just tell they just had such holistic childhoods, and not everybody was great, but you know, you could just see the work and the energy and the effort that was put in. I just felt so incompetent because I was left without so many things as a kid that led me to be the kind of adult that I was. You know, wasn't very trusting, still not, but that's a different story. Wasn't very emotionally available. When my friends would just say stuff to me like Jawanza, you don't like, you know, like for example, you don't like celebrations. You don't like celebrating birthday. Like, no, birthday's another day.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really do birthdays growing up.
Right.
You know, my 13th birthday was the first time I got a cake. So we just never celebrated. And after being around more functional people for a while, I just hit this place where I realized, oh, I'm messed up. Like I missed out on a lot of stuff. And that led to me just spiraling and processing and saying, why didn't I experience these things? And what does that mean for my future? And what, because of that, am I like forever gonna just be jacked up? What does that mean for my kids? Like, will I be able to provide things for them down the road? And by that point I was, you know, following the Lord. So I wanted a wife, I wanted kids. Would I be able to be a holistic husband? Would I be able to be a holistic father? And not to jump right, this is like intros, depth, but like,
as most of our conversations are though.
it's just like, I did not know, man, now and then it's like, now I would meet people's families. Like we have a really good friend, Mike. I would like go to his house and like see how holistic his household is.
Yeah.
How loving his parents are. How just sweet people who love Jesus. And not that my parents are terrible. Like they're immigrants from Haiti who did their best and did the best with what they had. Like
best.
Yeah. So that's to not take anything from them, but it's the reality that I missed a lot of things that I needed at that time, because if they only gave me what they had, that's all they can do, right? And they didn't even have the vision to see past that. So I needed something different than what they got. So becoming an adult, really processing man, especially because I have a natural like compassion and mercy gift set, and just looking back at my life and saying there's a lot of moments where the kid in me wasn't acknowledged and I had to grow up faster than I wanted to, or I wasn't able to like just be a kid.
Yeah.
So, which has a lot to do with the ministry that I do now, even at the job that I have, which is secular, but allowing kids to be kids is huge for me because of that. So anyway, man, I feel I don't hold anything against my parents at all, because they definitely did what they could. I just knew, in light of the wall that I hit when I was in college and the depression and the massive depression that happened when I was in college, I needed something different, and I needed to go back and acknowledge that there were moments in my life where I didn't get where I needed, so that I could move forward. And the little child in me who was like so loud that it just felt like background noise for the longest time. I just felt like this wailing that was happening inside my heart was it just felt like natural. And then I had to just stop and say, no, that's not cool. Like I could live without this like incessant crying going on. And it wasn't just like one of those like, hey, now you shut up, because now I'm projecting what happened to me back on the childhood version of me. I had to like see myself and acknowledge myself and give myself space to mourn adequately, where I wasn't given the space to mourn certain things when I was a kid. And I think that all led to, I don't remember the original question, but I think that all led to me being able to grow from it and grasping like certain moments, certain beautiful lessons from it. But there was a lot of like pieces of shrapnel that still I'm processing and removing from my heart. Like, oh, that's not supposed to be there. Like, it's just like,
oh, that's not supposed to be there.
Giant piece of
I didn't ask a question, by the way. We were just talking.
Oh, okay, cool. I forgot. Yeah. So it's. I think that's what life has been for me. Just really processing that. Along the way, you're gonna. It's almost like as you try to graduate, it's like the airport. You try to go to certain places. There's gonna be something that it's gonna be like a scanner that you're not gonna be able to get past until you process there's something in you that shouldn't be there. And it's like, well, I didn't really know this was in me. Like, I didn't even know this was on me this whole time. And then figuring out if I do want to elevate, if I do want to go to this next level of my life, I got to deal with this or just stay in this like middle ground, this runway area for the rest of my life and never elevate and see what was next, see what God has for me the next chapter. So what was that was in me? What was that thing that was just stubbornly inside of me in this season that's making me too weighty, that's stopping me from being able to elevate and go to the next level, next chapter?
And there's what's crazy about that moment when you come to that realization, there's a grief that comes with it, because you have to mourn it. Because like you said, you're looking back and you're like, why didn't I get these things?
Right.
Why wasn't this a normal part of my childhood?
Right.
So in a way, it's very easy to go down like this spiral.
Yeah, right.
Where now you're just like grieving your whole past. And I remember when I was first introduced to the concept of reparenting your inner child, I was like so kind of weirded out by that, because I was like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you reparent that inner child? But I guess what I needed to understand was that inner child never leaves. It's like you said, that was such a profound picture, bro, that you were like, he's just in the background wailing all this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where I think for me, mine was just quiet. But he was always there.
Right.
And he's just like reserved to himself, because I was isolated through so much of my youth.
Yeah.
It makes sense now that my inner child, instead of wailing or crying or, knocking or whatever, he's just in the corner quiet, because, I never got the attention I wanted, so I won't get it even from myself.
Yeah. This goes into so many aspects of a person and really of youth, because that like unheardness or that pain will manifest itself in some kind of way. And it's easy for us to look at an individual and ask that individual, say to that individual, why aren't you A, B, and C? Why aren't you doing whatever society or myself is expecting from you in a moment? But there's I can't remember the name of the theory, but there's a theory in sociology that speaks about a kid will show you or display what's happening inside of their world. So if there's destruction happening inside their world, that's why they're so destructive. That's why they're breaking things and they're so loud. There's some people that's like, yo, why are you so loud? Some kids in my program right now, it's like, you are inordinately loud. And that's because for them, that's normal inside. They're mimicking externally what happens inside of their heart. So something was disrupted and broken. So now for them, it's like, this is my norm then. So in order to make everything around me just like inside, I'm going to mimic what's happening inside outside. So I'm gonna be loud, I'm gonna break, and we call it negative attention. That's one of the newer words. They're looking for negative attention, but it's also them projecting what's going on in their internal world and making their external world mimic what's happening inside. Because if you're gonna tell them that that's not normal, let's say like you're not supposed to do that, you're then telling them their house is broken, their mom yelling at them is wrong, and all these things makes them a incomplete person. So it's easier to just replicate what happens at home and what's been morphed, what's been made, what your spirit person has been made to become. It's easy to just mimic that in the real world than it is to accept there's something wrong with the way I grew up, which was one of the reasons why, for me, it was difficult to come to terms with dealing with my inner person, because I didn't want to accept that all those years was something that's wrong with my family, something that's wrong with me. I love them.
Because you don't know that something's wrong.
You don't.
Because it's your normal.
And it's like, this is too much. It's like, define wrong.
Yeah,
like,
right.
What was
right.
what was wrong about that? Because there was a lot of beauty in what I experienced too. Like, you could tell me all, because there's this thing called, like, this is the first thing that popped in my head, thing called al genoux, which is like go on your knees for Haitian culture. If you have Haitian friends, or you know what I mean. It's like you're just on your knees for like hours. And it's like, oh, okay, I take that to the beating. And it's like, no, you wouldn't. I put money up, you wouldn't.
That's how my mom used to do that with me too. But hers was, when she was growing up, hers was worse. My dad used to always do it. I'm right.
It was levels to it. So,
which perfectly encapsulates they did the best that they could.
They did the best they could, because
they said, I'm going to take the rice out.
It worked. They do what worked for them. And there's so much to the whole aspect of when your parents, especially when your immigrant parents come from their country and they just give you all they had. And what I've been trying to do is ask my parents stories. Like, tell me stories from your childhood, because then I learned so much about why I saw what I saw when I was a kid. Because they've grown since then, but also I still see pieces of that. But they will give you so much information that will probably be healing to you if you just ask them for stories. What were your parents like? Because I don't know my grandparents. I didn't know growing up. Like, I didn't have that beautiful picture of legacy because they passed. And my grandmother came to America, but the rest of my grandparents died in Haiti. And my grandmother died when I was super young, so I have very little memory of her.
Right.
So if you get information about your parents and start getting curious and asking questions, that'll get you to a place where you could actually heal you, because now you're getting information about why you're getting data about why your parents did what they did.
Right.
Because they were just giving you what they were exposed to. And we're in an age now, we're just so smart, right? So it's like, we have all these like books and social media and just smart people online that can give us information and tell us what we should be doing. But at the end of the day, when it comes to culture and when it comes to non-American culture that immigrated to America, that just did their best, they didn't have that. So they did what they were exposed to and what they knew to work, because there was like a summit of province. Every culture has their own like summit where they don't actually go there, but they meet and they talk about sayings and traditions and things to do, because you talk to some people from the same culture and different households, and everyone not have the same exact
experience. It's crazy.
So it's like, part of me is, I had to come to terms to say, I went to my therapist once with it, and I just told her something that my dad would always tell me, because my dad was like so performative, and he would always want me to just perform and do and succeed. And it sounds like, okay, what's wrong with that? But it became like to the point where I felt like I didn't have a dad, I had a boss. So I never got affection from him until I accomplished something. I only felt like he loved me. And this was more my skewed perspective, so this is not actually him, but it started to get to the point where I almost felt like he only loved me when I would get A's, or when I had like some award to show him, or when I spoke on stage that he asked me to speak to my therapist. And I was like, man, like that like jacked me up. And I was like going in about why I hated it. And she was just like, well, that worked for him. And you can't be upset with him. And we're just circling back to like where we got here with what's wrong, right? Like how we define what's wrong. He said, like, when he was in Haiti, you have to ask him, for him, what was your survival technique? And what was the thing for you to accomplish greatness in Haiti, in such like a remote place of the world where no one really know you? He wanted to be a fashion designer. And the way that he got out was success. He was the best fashion designer in his village. And you couldn't tell him nothing. And he came to America with the hopes of being one of the best fashion designers. And for him, it was like success was his way out. So for me, he didn't want me to be pigeonholed as a young black man. He didn't want me to be pigeonholed to anyone's perception of hazard or danger because I was black, or because he wanted me to articulate well and succeed well, and no one be able to tell me nothing because I had the grades, I had the degree, I had the things. He was setting me up because he knew the world very well. Coming from Haiti was a very ugly one, and he didn't want me to just say you're a victim of people's perceptions of you, because as a young black man, those won't immediately be positive. So
Yeah.
he's like, that worked for him. Therapist says that worked for him. So if that doesn't work for you, you have to come to terms with, well, what does work for you? And that helped me just appreciate my dad for the lessons he's tried to teach me and the ones he really was successful at teaching me, because he was very successful at teaching me a lot about the lessons. Yeah.
It's crazy how I have these moments where I'm following you so closely, and then because you stopped, I was like, "Oh, I don't have nothing ready because I'm just listening."
I was like, I'm talking a lot. Let me just.
No. You're talking at a perfect amount, bro. Because everything you're sharing is really amazing, and it makes me think about how there's a common theme of, the parents just doing the best that they could. They really did. Joanna and I have talked on the Good, Brave, and Heroic One podcast. We've talked about that. We've talked about like your parents did the best they could. And we've talked about the fact that we're going to jack up our kids in some ways too, right?
For sure.
Like there's things that we're going to bring that's going to they're going to complain about, and they're going to be like, yeah, my dad always did this, and why didn't my dad do that?
Right.
Meanwhile, we think we're doing the best job. Like my dad says all the time to all of his kids, he's just like, what are you talking about? I provide everything. And for him, his dad wasn't around. So his dad left, bounced on him and his mom. He was with his mom. Maybe, I don't know my dad's story real well because he's very secluded. But maybe they were struggling. Maybe they weren't able to get food. So he grew up seeing all of this, and he's like, I'm gonna provide for my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna provide for them well. So for him, everything is about providing, and that's what works for him.
Right.
And it's tough because that doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me, especially because of the fact that him and my mom got separated. So I wonder sometimes how that affected him, because he probably was like, I'm never going to divorce my wife. Right? But things didn't work out between them. So now he probably is carrying the shame with himself, and I'm like a living embodiment of that shame for the rest of his life. Right? And then when I become a grown man and I come and I tell him like, yo, I'm not happy with our relationship. And my therapist at the time, my therapist said some crazy junk too, like similar to what yours said. But in a different way. He was a Puerto Rican and Brazilian cursing therapist from Newark. So just imagine that. I only went to 2 sessions for him because my insurance changed. But he said, if you were my son, I would have cursed you out too. My dad didn't curse me out, but he was like, I would have cursed you out too. And he said, you've been living your whole life, and there's this box of what your dad has been giving you. And you keep searching in the box for something that's not there. Why do you keep looking in that box for something that's not there if you know it's not there? Your dad's not able to give that to you.
That's good.
And it was in that moment that I was both pissed off, because I was like, but you can grow. Because as human beings, we have the capacity to grow, right? And that's something that you and we share a similar passion for. It's like we're trying to take whatever that ceiling is and compound it, multiply it, so that our children have not just, you're gonna do better no matter what. Typically, most people are gonna do somewhat better than their parents did. They did the best that they could. But at the end of the day, nobody really does the best that they could. They did the best that they could naturally.
Right.
But if you apply pressure, well, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, because it's not, because you do have a limit, but you could go much further. So my goal is to take it. How can I make Kaya, Lily, Ellie, and any other children that we have start off 10 generations ahead, rather than just what I could do? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's not easy. And I still believe that my dad and my mom, they did the best that they could. Not everybody has this strict growth mindset of trying to do their best, nor should they.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm not going to hold that to everybody. I wish everybody really wanted to grow, but again, you don't have to, right? Some people just want to lead a simple life
For sure.
and be at peace, and I respect that. So going back to what we were talking about with your story, and you touched on a couple of things, I want to take some time for you to talk a little bit more deeply about how some of those things made you feel growing up, your family dynamic, and then leading up to your salvation, meeting Jesus, because I know that that's a very beautiful story about how all of that came together within your family, right?
Yeah.
And so if you could share some of that, I think that would be beneficial for everybody listening. Plus, I'm losing my voice, so it's good that you're talking a lot. I lost my voice already, but it's on the struggle bus. God knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I think, so I'm the youngest of, I'm trying to say, I think I'll start from there. I'm the youngest of four siblings. I don't see anything as half, but just for detail purposes, me and my my immediate next sister, we're the only two siblings that have the same parents. Then the sister after that, we share the same mother. Me and my brother, my oldest sibling, same father, same household. We don't know half nothing. We're just growing up together, just chilling. And there's just a lot of tension in the house, and we don't know where it came from. Like, my mom is always beefing with my brother, and it just seems to be like for no reason coming for him. And it was one of those, like, I don't know why, like, you know, I just kept it moving. You know, I was the youngest. I definitely had a lot of the youngest perks, but it also came with a lot of weights because there's a lot of moments where I was treated preferentially, and I saw a lot of my mom's wrath. My sisters get that seriously confounded. Like, I saw a lot of that. I was beat. I was all the things, but I saw it a lot more with them, and that's what started to build my compassion for people in my household network, because I was able to see why don't we give out the same love or treatment to them? Like, they're blood too, from what I know. Mm-hmm. I can't remember how it comes out that my brother is, but early on it comes out that my brother, like, you know, is from my father's previous relationship.
Did he know, or?
I'm pretty sure he knew, because he was the oldest. I was just in ignorant land, you know, because I was the youngest. People didn't say a lot to me. My opinion wasn't really, like, you know, valued anywhere, so it was kind of like, shut up.
Right.
And take whatever.
Little brother energy.
Right. Right. So a lot of what I could say, again, we talked a little bit about this before. I don't want to go in detail about, because it is my sibling story. I don't want to tell their story. But there was just a lot of, like, choices and decisions that were made growing up, both by my parents and by my siblings, that just led to a very, like, tenuous household. And one of those that I think I could share is, man, I've never said to share this publicly, but one of those that that was, like, super tense was my mother did voodoo. So she, based on the practices of, like, our homeland and her mother and her paranoia, she felt very spiritually vulnerable, which we all are.
Yeah, right.
The reality is, she felt something in a way that was more tangible that we all really feel. We have no spiritual protection without Jesus. So, and her way to find spiritual protection was to call on her ancestors and to call on the powers of the demonic to provide covering, so that anyone else who saw her prospering and saw any of the things of her being in America, because we have a lot of family back in Haiti. Anyone who envied her or wanted her dead, who could put a spell or put a hex on her, she'd be covered from. She's convinced to this day that our grandmother, and I can't disprove that. It could be very real. That's the reality.
Right.
Our grandmother was killed through a curse put on her life. So
Wow.
we were constantly subjected to like these random like seances and smoking cigarettes, having to drink these weird concoctions of things and be downstairs while people danced around us, or it was like weird stuff like that we would always have to do. And we just wouldn't talk about it. Nobody.
Yeah.
We just had to go to American school after that. Like,
Yeah, and you were just lost in the sauce.
what in the world?
You're thinking everybody else is doing this at home too.
No, I know they're not. That's the
Okay,
thing.
okay.
I'm in suburban. At this point, my parents moved to a more suburban area of New Jersey because my dad was trying to escape he didn't want anyone to become a victim of just urban city life. So he took us to suburbia, which had its own like racism and tension and issues. So either way, we had to navigate stuff. So then growing up, of course, we got into trouble. I was a thief. I stole stuff. I got into fights. I was just one of those knuckleheaded dudes. And I can't tell you exactly what it was, whether it was like just the concoction of all the issues that were happening in the household, because around the time, if you fast forward from like when I was super young and trying to make sense of what was happening in the house, seances and fights and stuff with my brother, and my mom and my sister and my dad, you fast forward and we realize, okay, my oldest sister is biologically does not belong to my father. What does that mean? And then again, there's so many things I could say that's not my story to tell that came in supplement to that. We just had to kind of figure stuff out as a sibling group because we wouldn't talk about it as parents.
Yeah. The whole we're not going to talk about it energy and Caribbean and
damaging.
It's so like
it's damaging
so
because
bad.
you come to your own conclusions.
As a kid.
Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah. Because my parents split, I silently take on the role as the man of the house because my brother had moved out by that time. And my brother, actually, he moved out. He moves back in at some point and finds Jesus. He goes to something called Battle Cry. That happened years ago. You remember Battle Cry?
Yeah, bro.
He goes to Battle Cry years ago and gets saved at a Battle Cry. And it was like this epic moment of like, I'll never forget this night. It must have been like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And my brother comes home like in tears. And he was one of those like emotionless, beat you up, I don't want you in my room kind of older brother. So
I remember you telling me that.
I never seen him emote like that. Like there's actually this funny time. This one time, Karen, my closest sister, she did a wrestling move on him, like one of those like twist his arm, pull it. And he like went to his room crying. I remember that was actually one of the funniest. So I did see that once. But I never really seen him emote aside from that wrestling move. And my brother, came home and he's just snapping his CDs in half, which CDs aren't a thing anymore. But snapping CDs in half are like going home and like, there's nothing as epic as it, but it's essentially like unsubscribing from your Apple Music, or at least taking off all the second music.
Not the same
doesn't
energy.
feel the same, right? It's just like the flip phone. You will never be able to replicate the feeling of like hanging up on somebody.
Never.
You can't replicate that feeling.
Nah.
Just like pressing a touchscreen doesn't hit the same. But anyway, he's snapping his CDs in half. Pow, like Wu-Tang. Pow, DMX. Pow, Eminem. Pow, Jay-Z. Like, and I'm just like, first and foremost, I will take those, my friend. Like, why are you snapping them?
Can I get those? Why are you snapping them both? Can I get them?
His thing was every morning blasting music from downstairs, which my mom hated. He lived in the basement of the house. And he would just blast music from downstairs. And he exposed me to so much like late 80s, early 90s hip hop that I only know now because of him. And like now he's snapping his CDs in half.
You were confused because you guys were both such music heads.
Right. And he doesn't, no context, he just is crying tears, like uncontrollably, like hyperventilating, snapping his CDs in half and just throwing them in this trash bag. And me and my sister are just like, we're just watching him like, what is going on?
Your sister's like, should I try the wrestling move?
I can stop this right now.
I can stop this right now. I know exactly what I could do.
Yeah, yo. So we were just like, it was just interesting, man, because it was like, I knew him to be if there was one thing he was committed to in this house, it was music. Because I loved him. I wanted to be like him, but we didn't have an emotional relationship. So there's one thing I knew he was emotionally attached to was music. Right. So to see him snapping those CDs in half, I knew there was something happening. Later, he ends up explaining to us what happened. He got saved. And he starts acting different. He's just a different person. I know my brother. I've known him for however many years that was, somewhere in the double digits of my life at that point, or late single digits. And I'm like, no, you're different. There's something different about you. There's something different about you. He starts acting different. He has more joy, more peace. Fruits of the Spirit are all over his life. So that happens. Then he goes to college. He goes to Temple. Kind of loses his faith for a season, then comes back home. So in between that is where like some of I take on like the man of the household kind of thing.
Right.
And I get tough. I start thinking like, I started listening to 50 Cent. I'm a gangster at this point.
Downloading songs on LimeWire.
Making mixtape CDs. Those were like, that's the era that I'm in. Which is why like I love making playlists to this day. Like I didn't realize, I'm like, I like making playlists because I would just be like burning CDs all the time for cats, like and then writing like number one.
Yeah.
Like, bro, that was like I love putting mixes together for people. And now today I love making playlists for people, just like asking them like, hey, who you like? And then trying to put some stuff together. But anyway, so we would just start seeing this transformation. But then he came home from Temple. He didn't finish. He took African American studies for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years, had a mental breakdown. Wow. At Temple. And we learned that he was diagnosed bipolar. And that ends up leading to a whole other story that it's for a different time, hopefully with him, because I would rather he tell that story.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
He'll probably watch this, so we waiting on you, bro.
Yeah. So in the process of that, he ends up, I'm like bouncing between 3 to 5 years, but then he ends up recommitting his life to the Lord, and I see fruit again. So at this point, he's living with my father. I'm still living with my mother. And I'm like holding down the man of the house. It's like, early high school for me. He's grinding, working, doing some stuff with a church out in Elizabeth, and going to a church that I now attend in Roselle, in New Jersey. And
was PA the pastor back then?
PA, well, yeah, he was pastor from the time he started.
So fire.
And so yeah, it's like I start seeing this difference in him. He starts taking me around with him. Like I see the way he interacts with people. So it's crazy. Like not many people know, but if you see the way I love people, interact with people, I'm mimicking my brother like to this day.
Wow.
Not because I still want to I don't have my own identity, but one, he was such a big influence in my life growing up, and then growing up in the faith. But then he discipled me. So then, not to get too far ahead of myself, he's leading at this hip hop church, which was probably the only way Jesus could have got me. Again, loved music, loved hip hop.
Hip hop church is unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me it's so normal. So when I say it, people are like, hip hop church.
It's like, what is hip hop church?
And it was wild when I first heard it too. But then it became such a part of my life that it's just like, yeah, hip hop church, bro, every Saturday.
Mind you, interesting tidbit about that. It's so crazy the amount of times me and Jawanza missed each other. Because I went to hip hop church pretty frequently. I rapped at hip hop church.
I always say that. I'm like, dang. I could have been there. I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't think you were, bro. Cause like I have no point of reference for your face.
Do you remember who the sound man was?
It wasn't you. I remember it wasn't you.
Big Pops, because Pops.
No, I think it might have been. I think Jay Sean was doing it.
Oh, okay. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, we gotta figure out the timetable for that.
Let me check something real quick.
No doubt. You pausing?
Nah. I'll keep that in. It's all good.
Yeah, bro. So he started serving at this hip hop church, which we can have a whole episode on just the hip hop church. Like, I needed to see, because before my brother helped lead me to the Lord and discipled me and Jesus and as a disciple for Jesus, he discipled me in rap and blackness and like pro-blackness, Black Panther. Like, so I've Jesus knew, he was very strategic in how he reached me.
It's crazy.
Not only was it with the same person who I looked up to my whole life, but it was in a context where there was Black men in leadership everywhere.
Which is another beautiful aspect of hip hop church.
Black men were like everywhere in leadership with their wives, with their kids, speaking the word, loving on the Lord in a structured environment. And it just did something to me. Like
it was a powerful environment, bro. It was super powerful because, I'm mad introverted.
Yeah.
But it's just the way that Rudy was like, nah, I want to hear you rap in Spanish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you don't understand Spanish. He's like, nah, you gonna come up here and you gonna rap in Spanish. And then I'm rapping, and he's like got this joy, and everybody's vibing with it. And I'm done. And he's like, I don't know what you said, but the spirit was on that. And he's like, I felt the flow, because hip hop is about flow.
It's more about how you, like the whole "you feel me." It's a hip hop term. Like when people say, it's not just about like, do you understand me? It's about, is what my spirit putting down tangible for you, right? Like, so
that's stank.
I can go. I don't want to park anywhere too long because I'm like, I gotta just. But yeah, hip hop.
We'll do a 5-episode series.
I'd love to come back. I'll come back. Hip hop church changed my life, bro. Regeneration is a real thing people don't talk about. So regeneration is the work of the Spirit in your heart before you accept Jesus. And I felt my heart coming alive every time I would come to hip hop church.
Wow.
And then come to Chestnut on Sundays with him afterwards. I would just feel a joy that would go away by like Tuesday, Wednesday. But I felt something tangible that I knew my heart needed.
Wow.
Up until the point that I go. And they're just, I could tell so many stories. Like, they were funny, they were engaging, they were caring before I even accepted Jesus. They were just like, yeah, I was like, what's up, man? Like, how you doing? Like, asking simple questions like that show they were invested. And not just because I was his brother, because I was a presence, I was there. They did that to everybody who came through. One night after hip hop church, my brother calls me, and he would just talk to me as if like I was already saved. He would just like have this conversation with me, tell me about things that he was doing, tell me about like people he was evangelizing to, and books in the Bible he was reading, like as if I could correspond with him on the same level. He would do that all the time. I remember clearly. One day he would even he closed me in a room, and he played like a video for me about the gospel, and like he was just outside the room praying fervently.
I remember you telling me this story.
This is before I accepted him, and like I remember like he opened the door afterwards. He was like, yeah, so, and I was like,
have you been transformed by the gospel?
I didn't really even know what I watched per se. It wasn't that. It wasn't like, I didn't need content. I needed context. Wow. Content for me was important, like feeling like I understood what Jesus did, and because when they would preach, it would touch me. But what was bigger for me was to see Jesus in my context. Like, oh, Jesus could put on a fitted and rap. You know what I mean? Like, that was important to me. And which is why I will never change who I am for anyone, because Jesus, he didn't tell me that he had to change something about my culture in order to meet me where I was. So I'm not about respectability politics or like any of that. So anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I feel like for me, that night that he called me was so impactful because I saw so much at that point. So he was talking about all these things, and he was just like, yo, so what are you waiting for? And when he asked me, what are you waiting for? I heard the voice of the Lord under his voice. And it was, to this day, I don't know why he did it that way. Like, it was just like, he said, yo, so what are you waiting for? And as he said it, like, it was like a river, because another voice was tucked under his voice. And I remember being like speechless, like, yo, say that again. And he did, it didn't happen again. But it was just like,
God was like, you only get one of those.
Yeah, right. So anyway, it was like, I ended up being like, okay, God is real. What I've been experiencing up to this point isn't just like some hocus pocus, but it's been like a reality that I can't see, but that's been having an impact on the deepest parts of me. So in light of all those things, I have a decision to make, right? I can't have experienced all of that experience and just kind of just be like, well, whatever. And I had a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, there was actually, which I think, it could be whatever it is to whoever. But there was a dude who I was going to high school with who said he was a Christian, but he was like doing everything else. But apparently, he was a believer. Like, went to church. He like was on the worship team at his church.
Oh my goodness.
But everyone knew him as like this, like reckless clown who nobody really wanted to mess with and bang with. And I was like, I don't want to be him.
Yeah.
I don't want to be him. I remember telling my brother, like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. If I'm going to live for something, I want to do it. And he's like, you know what? Take it a step at a time. Think about the faith like a staircase. Remember this conversation almost verbatim. Think about the faith like a staircase, and you just take it one step at a time, and don't worry about like getting to some point where you're going to be perfect, because that will never happen. And don't feel like you're going to be a hypocrite or let anyone down. You're going to be imperfect along the way. Just take it one step at a time. So I accepted the Lord that night, man. And from that moment, God just started to do something in my heart and change me and make me someone different. I didn't have to do anything around the house because I was the youngest. That was one of the perks. But I just started cleaning and serving. And that was one of the first gifts that manifested in me, just wanting to serve, because that was just the new heart he gave me.
You mean it wasn't tongues?
It wasn't tongues. It was service, which that's a whole other conversation.
I take another a little slight at Pentecostal. We actually are Pentecostal. But yeah, we just gonna let that one rock.
Yeah, bro. So yeah, from that day, which was at the end. Oh shoot, what's today? It's at the end of this month. It's gonna be 16 years ago. So we walk with the Lord. Yeah.
That's amazing, bro. Thank you for sharing that, man, because such a beautiful story, especially the river of the voice coming under towards you. And I just praise God for so many things, like the seriousness that you took your faith, not wanting to be a hypocrite. It's like even the fact how you had to preface it by saying that it wasn't that I was trying to be like my brother or that I am now. But even in your journey, it showed, right? Because if it was like that, when he put you in the room, you would have been like, yes, I love the Lord. You would have came out singing, Shine, Jesus, shine, with 10 songs for worship CDs in your head, every color.
Oh my goodness. Like,
not many people will get that reference.
No. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But you didn't, right? You were being true to yourself while also honoring your brother. Mm-hmm. And so you were like living in the tension of that. Mm-hmm. And living in that tension is what led you to Jesus. Because you were just like, okay, I don't really know what this is about, but I'm gonna still rock with my brother because he's my brother. Mm-hmm. And I see what's going, like this is real because it's changing his life. Yeah. Because he was showing some crazy fruit. Yeah. He wasn't old boy at the high school, right? He was showing some crazy fruit. Right. Like, I pictured that moment when he came home and he's just snapping the CDs, sobbing. Mm-hmm. That's so powerful, how Jesus touched him so deeply. Not everybody experiences that. Right. Some people get saved and it's not that it's an emotionless experience. It's more cognitive for them. They're just like, I'm a sinner and I know I need to give Jesus my life. Doesn't make it any less real, but it's beautiful to see how for your brother, it was a deeply emotional experience and it was cognitive. It was intentional and it produced immediate fruit. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, bro. Shout out to Kevin.
We talk often to this day. And I tell him all the time, like, because he tells me a lot how proud he is of the man I am. And I'm like, I'm not the man I am without you. Yeah. I don't know without because Jesus can do anything, right? But he also kindly and strategically set it up in this way because it was almost irresistible, right? Like it was so many pieces that he put in place because he knows me and he knows us. He knows the ways to reach us. Yeah. And that was for me I knew it was a loudspeaker from heaven in light of everything that I saw up to the moment before I said yes, of him trying to reach me. So that was my response to say yes.
Beautiful, though. All right, so we're gonna end it there. I know you gotta get going soon. I think it's a good spot to end to. Parts 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be coming soon. I'm not entirely sure. Like, we got like 5 topics we could go from today. It's like Sandy, when Sandy be telling me after I preach, she's like, well, she only told me like once or twice, but she's just like, you be having sermons in your sermons. Then I walked away from that like, yo, I really do need to simplify, but like, I just be trying to pack in as much as I can, bro, because I just enjoy it so much. But and then that's why our conversations end up being that way. So it's like, it's funny because we were gonna, before all these podcasts, we were actually gonna do a podcast back before podcasting was podcastular. And we did a what did we call it? Like a beta episode, we called it.
Yeah.
And that joint was fire.
It was dope.
It was mad fire. Like, it was off the cuff, and but like, you know, that's just like, we could just sit down and put our phone to record and release that on as a podcast. And it would work. It would work. This is just our relationship. So thank you for being here, bro.
Yeah,
thank you
bro.
for doing this with me.
Anytime. Thanks for the invite. This was dope.
Yeah, bro, I appreciate you. And thank you for honoring everybody with your story. And I hope that all of you guys really enjoyed, and please share your takeaways down below. If you want to get connected with Jawanza, good luck. I'll probably throw his email. Email is probably your best bet, because it's not going to work on Instagram.
I'm just not I'm like, there's people around me who I'm walking and doing life with.
Yeah. Like, you can reach him with a phone call, but I'm not going to give you his number.
Right, yeah.
So that's just me being real. I'll throw his email down there, baby, if he's cool with it. So, but you can reach him through me. Let's say that, right? Yeah. If you know me and you already know him and you're like, yo, I need to connect with Jawanza, let me know.
That's fine.
Either way, I love you guys. Have an amazing week. See you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.